What's up, everybody? Welcome to PPR podcast number 195. We are on to week 10. We'll preview all the games coming up, and we're going to review the week that was week 9. As always, I'm Chase Izidoro, and as always, I'm joined by Maddy Worley. Maddy, first off, what a week for week 9.
A great slate in week 9. Like we said, probably one of the best we've seen definitely this season and maybe in PPR history.
For quite a while.
Yes.
As far as like back-to-back game of the week, North County, East County, you couldn't miss it when it was coming.
No way.
And then the games beyond that as well, so much on the line. We got to start with game of the week, though.
Game of the week was a big one. We have to recap what happened. Lincoln really makes the statement as we are the best team in San Diego as they beat Cathedral 27-7. I didn't think the score would be that different, but Lincoln really showed some dominance on the field. You
know, it's so hard to judge when it's like, all right, will it be a shootout? Will it kind of be a defensive battle? We got more of the defensive battle. And I mean, shout out to Bashif Jones. What he's done as the defensive coordinator for Lincoln has been phenomenal. To do that to this Cathedral team on the heels of what they just did to Granite, from all the weapons that Cathedral team has and the capabilities that they have, especially with their O-line and how great they are. I mean, you talk about a guy like Eugene Rice. I mean, I believe he had 8 tackles on the day from inside the trenches. It's incredible. And then it's 7-0 at halftime. Like we've seen so many times before, Lincoln is in the game, whether they're winning or they're losing by a touchdown, and then they make that halftime adjustment. So far through this season, they have outscored their opponents by 69 points in the first half. In the second half, they've outscored them by 89. That includes a game against Point Loma where they were up 28-0 at halftime. So they have that much of advantage. So really, it is, I don't know if it's a slow start. I don't know if I think it's more just the adjustments. I think it's more the coaches really doing a great job with their players, making them understand what's going on. And that's really the adversity side of things, which makes Lincoln so great. It's not just that they're running through teams and it's no big deal, it's no problem. They have not issues, but they're in games. It's a close game, it's a close battle, and then they make the adjustments and they show how great they are. That's the mark of a great team, and Lincoln really is a great team. 27-7 at the home of the Dons. I mean, that's just beyond impressive. And the touchdown that was on broken coverage probably could have been a shutout, which would have been even more impressive. Just hats off to Lincoln. They are the one in San Diego. Still a lot of games left to be played. Obviously, we get to playoffs. Something could happen like we saw last year where Granite beat them. So everything's still on the line for sure. It's not over yet, but Lincoln is making a statement that they could be a state title winning team, not just an open division winning team. This team is phenomenal. Yeah,
it was super impressive to see what they did Friday night. And not only was it a sweet win for them just to secure that top position, it was also Coach Dunn's 100th career win. So shout out to him for that. That is a great career mark to hit.
Absolutely, and especially when it's such a big game like that too, to make that statement, to get that 100th win. That's an awesome moment for Coach Dunn, who, you know, this program has really turned into something great over these last couple of seasons, where they are now kind of making their mark as like San Diego's team. And I love it for the program. I love it for those kids over there. It's a great moment to be a part of the Lincoln Hornets.
It definitely is, and who knows, we could see these two matching up again.
Very good chance,
depending how things shake out.
I think now that we've seen it kind of shake out, where, you know, not to say that the same result's going to happen when it'll be Granite and Cathedral if Granite goes into the open again, but there's a chance where it very well could be Cathedral and Lincoln. So we got round 1. I'm sure there's going to be some adjustments made on both sides. You know, the coaching staffs on both sides are what's really phenomenal too. Offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. You're talking about some of the best coaches in the county playing some of the best players in the county, you know, and really some of the best programs in the county as far as like history behind them as well. It's the perfect rivalry that has been brewing, and it's, you know, round 1 goes to Lincoln. Well, round 1 this year goes to Lincoln.
This year, yeah. Who knows? And then in the North County, we also had a really, really good game. We knew it was going to be close because Mission Hills always does that. LCC ended up taking the win 28-27, and they extend that undefeated streak.
You know, we talk about Mission Hills always making games close. I think what we see in the Avocado League, all the games are really close because a lot of the teams play a similar style. The talents are very similar. There's always good players at multiple different locations. You know, so LCC has always played those close games, and we talked about before how they always seem to lose the close games. Not like it's always they lose, but they've had this stretch where they've had great teams and they just couldn't pull it out. Now we see them pull out the close one against a really good Mission Hills team. You know, Mission Hills had the chance to run out the clock. And LCC stopped them, forced them to punt it back, and then they got a little too conservative, forced them to punt it back. They go down drive for the game-winning touchdown. Really just an all-around great performance. Kobe Herman, though, really the big play was his 89-yarder that went for a touchdown. 8 carries for 126 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 catches for 43 yards as well. Another underclassman, and that's what we see from LCC is so many underclassmen, and you don't really know how that's going to play out. Are they going to be an 8-0 team? Yeah, sure, they are now, but that you could probably expect them to be maybe 2 or 3 losses because they're a little bit more inexperienced. To see them have this much success with this young of a class, we're going to see this LCC team, obviously this year, but next year as well, come back with a lot of firepower. It's really impressive, and they're really putting a stamp on, potentially making the open division.
For sure.
Still a lot left to be played, though, in the avocado.
Yes, definitely. We also had a great one in the East with Granite Hills and Mount Miguel. We said this is sort of the unofficial battle of who is really going to be the team this year. We know Granite was the open division champs last year, and I think they want to say, hey, that's who we are, and we're still the best in the East County as they took the win 45-30.
Yeah, and really the most impressive thing about this was Max Turner. 271 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, becomes Granite Hill's all-time leading rusher. Kellen Cobb's also earning his 100th win to go alongside David Dunn as well. So shout out to Kellen. He's done a great job at building that program. I think the biggest thing, I know Mount Miguel wants to be the team out east, and I know that that's what they strive for. But they have to, kind of clear these hurdles before they could get to that point. And they've done so far. Big win over Helix, even though it's not the Helix of the past. Some big wins over some other good teams like La Jolla Country Day, Bishops, but really, this is the one they needed, and I think it was just a little bit too much for them. They got down 21-10, so it was early coming back, but they had some pretty good plays. Stowers made some good throws to Arrington and to Delonte Williams, who Delonte's been great since he's come back, and really that just goes to show the type of weapons that Mount Miguel has on offense. I mean, they're from Logan to Arrington to Williams. They got 3 great receivers, obviously a great run game as well. I think they're missing it in the trenches. And so I think, honestly, they're probably not an open division team, and because of this loss, they're not going to get there.
Yeah.
But this could be a team that is still dangerous in D1 playoffs. They got all the talent possible, but to see that much running done against them, that really kind of shows the difference when it comes into the trenches. And when you have a runner like Max Turner, I mean, that's tough to stop.
Hard to stop. Very, very difficult to stop.
But still, they pulled back in at 45-30. I mean, they could have.
And they had a chance to tie it at 24 points.
Yeah, they were right there. It was a very close game. I know the scoreline doesn't necessarily reflect that because it's 2 scores.
Right.
But Mount Miguel pulled back into this one. So it is a really good sign, even though it is an L. But I don't think necessarily, I think differently of this Mount Miguel team all of a sudden, or, they've been exposed in any way. I still rate them very highly after this.
Yeah, and I think they're still a program that's definitely on the rise, and the fruits are starting to show.
Yeah, and they'll never say that they feel good with a loss. I don't think any football team will ever be like, we hung in there. They'll never say it, but they should. They should feel good that they can show, and that's what they have to go through to get through this process.
Right.
They got to show that they can play with these guys. Sometimes you're going to lose. That's how it goes.
There's always a winner. There's always a loser. We got to move to Scripps Ranch and UC, 2 teams who definitely didn't want to lose since they were both fighting to keep the win streak. Scripps came out on top, 31-13.
Yeah, the biggest thing was the size of Scripps Ranch, and we talked about that for a while now. Ryan Stoddard, another great game for him. He's shown to be a great 2-way player for Scripps Ranch, but really just the size in the trenches for Scripps Ranch is something that, when we kind of revert back to the normal when it comes to football at the high school level, is being able to run the ball, being able to, block, and being able to beat your block. And when you have a team that consistently does that, like Scripps Ranch, it's always going to be tough to beat them. We mentioned Mission Hills a bunch when it comes to that as well. And I think that's kind of where UC just lost it. They weren't really necessarily effective when it comes to running for them. Obviously, they're going to be throwing a lot too when they're coming from behind, so I get it. But, UC is also a team that's extremely talented. But I think this Scripps Ranch team has shown time and time again that they are going to be a physical football team.
For sure.
And, they're undefeated. 8-0. That's impressive no matter how you do it. And they almost certainly are going to lock up this Eastern League. There's still a couple more games, but this was kind of the decider. I know now that they lose another one, it could kind of be like a shared Eastern League title, but this one really was kind of the big one for Scripps Ranch. And so massive win for the Falcons.
Yeah, huge win for them. I think we might not have talked about Scripps Ranch enough earlier on because now they're sitting at 8-0, and I think everyone around town is realizing, wow, they're a really good team, and they definitely pose some threats against everyone they face.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's always like a year where it's like an up and down with Scripps Ranch. And it's even in their down, it's not like necessarily they have like bad players or anything. You know, they've always produced a really good program. Marlon Gardner has done a phenomenal job over there at Scripps Ranch. And this certainly isn't up. It's an 8-0, and now it's like, okay, how high can it go?
Yeah.
You know, I don't think they'll make an open division at 8-0, just with the way it's shaking out. But this could be a very viable team in D1. The D1 playoffs is starting to shape out where it's going to be a lot of good teams.
Really good.
You know, like it's going to be interesting as it always is.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a huge win for them over UC, a UC team that's been rolling, that really has a lot of firepower when it comes to talent on the outside. For UC, you know, this is one where they're going to take this. They're going, you know, this was a big one for them. I know they had a big one against Brawley as well, which they kind of circled on their schedule. Yeah. They dropped this one, but now they get a chance to kind of bounce back as they head into the playoffs.
Definitely. And speaking of heading into the next couple weeks, we got to talk about week 10. Not only was week 9 a really good slate of games, but this next week is too. We start at the game of the week, Carlsbad visiting 8-0 LCC. You
know, a little bit of rivalries this week, which I love to see. You know, we've already had some with the way scheduling has kind of broken out, but this week, Carlsbad LCC has always been a really good rivalry. You know, I expect another close matchup as we've seen from all the Avocado League games. You know, LCC, I don't think it's necessarily, obviously the Mission Hills game was circled because that was one where it's like, all right, this is like kind of who wins this will go to the Open. You know, but now Carlsbad's right there looking at him again, and Carlsbad could easily win this and then sneak their way to another Avocado League, or, you know, going on to higher ranks as well. I think LCC needs to lock back in. It's great that they got a good win against Mission Hills. Carlsbad team's a little bit different than them, but also a lot of these Avocado League teams play the same way. So I expect another close one. Will LCC be able to do it again? There's a good chance. Yeah. I mean, they've shown it now, so they definitely have that kind of over the hump feel. But they do need to lock back in, because this is always the, you know, oh, it's a great win, kind of not necessarily your Super Bowl, but you feel like you put all your energy in that win against Mission Hills, especially with it coming down to the end. But now you have to lock back in, because Carlsbad is still Carlsbad at the end of the day.
Exactly. You can't sit back, take too much of a break, because Carlsbad's coming off a nice win over Torrey Pines. Eli McNeil looks really good, and Carlsbad is a fantastic program here in the county, and they're never going to go into a game being sort of complacent. They're always going to put up a fight. And so I think, like you said, LCC needs to remain really focused, especially if they want to stay in that winning streak category and stay in that open division category. But if Carlsbad pulls this off, this will have really shake up the rankings. Yeah. I don't know where everyone will go.
It would be very Avocado League for Carlsbad to win this game. But, you know, I think there's also going to be a lot of rivalry and a lot of tension in that aspect to want to overperform, which could be a good and bad thing. You know, sometimes that can mess you up if you're a team like LCC. So I would expect a big one for this one. I'm going to say LCC is going to pull it off again. I've been saying it from the jump. I've been high on them. I think they're a really, really good offense. We've seen that time and time again. There's a lot of guys on this team that don't get a lot of love that they should. You know, we talk so much about Quinn Roth, and as we should, he's been phenomenal. Yeah. But Jackson Majery has been great. Kobe Herman has really been a great player. That you know, it's tough, because when you look at underclassmen of the year, you can only kind of put one from each school. You know, otherwise it would be like 4 kids from one school. He might not make it over Roth, but he's had a year where it's worthy of an underclassman of the year type performance. So LCC has a lot of good players that I think might be enough in the end to take down the Carlsbad team. Yeah.
And we'll definitely be keeping an eye on those players, not just this season, but next year, since they are fairly young still.
Yeah, and now we get on to the South Bay, the oldest rivalry, the longest standing rivalry in San Diego. They've been playing this game since 1947. It will be National City versus Chula Vista, 4-4 Sweetwater at 4-4 Chula. You know, both these teams really got off to a hot start, but both of them are on 3-game losing streaks, so someone's going to be snapping it, and someone will be doing it against their long-hated rivals. You know, very tough opponents to go against each other too. We've seen some times where, you know, Sweetwater's had a good start, but then kind of blown the lead late. Chula Vista's kind of been in a weird spot where they've played some really tough opponents against Otay and Mater Dei. You know, kind of where we wanted to see, okay, how well can they match themselves against some of the better teams in the South Bay right now. I want to look out for Elijah Gillespie versus Ryan Cruz. You know, Ryan Cruz is an incredible player on offense. We saw that in that state title run last year, and we always know Elijah Gillespie is what he's capable of. Hasn't necessarily put up the numbers like he did last year in his record-breaking performance, but I think this is a week where you're going to see these two guys kind of ball out where, you know, we might see 5 highlights on the PPR for this week for the South Bay Game of the Week. Wouldn't be surprised if all five of them are them.
Yep, back to back with
100%.
those two. Also looking at them, their only common opponent this year between the two teams have been Bonita Vista. Sweetwater fell to them. Chula Vista shut them out. So because of that, maybe I'd give Chula Vista the upper hand. But like you said, Sweetwater definitely has some weapons on their team, and it's going to make for a really fun rivalry game down in the South.
This is that one rivalry game where everything kind of goes out the window. This is the one where it's like you cannot really anticipate how well you've been playing up to this point or how poorly you've been playing up to this point. This one's going to be, you know, you can never really tell when it comes to Sweetwater Chula because there is that much of a feeling of like the big rivalry down south. This is the game. So I cannot wait for this one. It always hypes me up to see this game.
Yeah, definitely going to be a really cool atmosphere down there. And then we move out east. We've got West Hills visiting El Cap, another little bit of a rivalry game. And I really like games at El Cap. We talked about that a couple weeks ago with Granite. It kind of has that atmosphere of everyone coming out.
Yeah.
It feels small town. You've got like the ag building with the animals next to it, the dirt. It feels really fun out there. It's definitely going to be a good one for Allison.
Yeah, the El Cap is always one of the best ones to go out and watch. I would say, ooh, it's tough. I still give it to Ramona. I think Ramona is probably my favorite one where it's like, all right, everyone is coming out from the town to go to the game. Ramona probably still takes the cake. El Cap's out there for Lakeside.
Really
a lot
is.
of people go to the game. I know they always have the run down Main Street. But, you know, this is always a big one, too, because West Hills versus them is always a good rivalry. I don't know if it's like the color scheme matchup. Where it's like the weird black and blue versus black and yellow. It always just looks good. But Santee versus Lakeside always it seems to be a good little rivalry. These games always usually come down to the Grossmont Valley League title. That's what we have again here. Yep. So, you know, this will be another big performance. I know Brant Barker has had some ups and downs this season. Yeah. I expect him to have a good game, but also Brady Jora-Lamone, 18 carries, 128 yards, and a touchdown last week. I expect more from them in the running game as well.
Definitely.
You know, it should be an interesting one. I'd probably give the edge to El Cap. They were very shaky to start the year. I know injuries played a lot of part in that. They've seemed like they've gotten healthier, and now they're getting on a little bit of a groove. I would expect El Cap at home to come out with the victory, but you know, it's the beauty of rivalry week. You never really know because there's always that extra energy, especially from the jump, which could lead to mistakes or you know not starting off as hot. So I would give the edge to El Cap, but I wouldn't be surprised with West Hills. They always usually show up for this game.
I would give the edge to El Cap too. I think having that home field advantage and the type of atmosphere it is also helps. But like you said, with a rivalry game, there's always something a little bit extra to play for where it's really a toss-up between the two teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we get on to the North County Game of the Week. 3-5 Poway at 3-5 Torrey Pines. We've seen both these teams give some really great teams in the Avocado a run for their money. We saw Poway play a really close one against LCC for a while before LCC pulled off with the victory. We just saw Torrey Pines play a really close one against Carlsbad, 21-14. And this really comes down to their defenses. They've been very solid. They've been able to play. Offense, not as much consistency, but still some decent players. One player on Poway that really stands out to me is quarterback Ty Hurst.
Yep.
There's times where he can look really, really good. I think the new way Poway plays as well with the new, more passing offense, I think really fits with him. I would expect Poway to come out with some fire, but Torrey Pines has been underratedly one of the best coached teams in this county, and that's why they've been able to keep all of their games so close. I think that's what might be the advantage, though, is Torrey Pines might come out victorious because of how well coached they are. Not to say Poway's not, but every single game, Torrey Pines knows what they want to do to try and get a win. Usually they don't, but they're right there every single time, even against a great team like Carlsbad. So I would probably give the edge to the Falcons in this one.
Yeah, I feel like a broken record saying this. It's going to be another close game from our Avocado League teams in Torrey Pines. But like you said, Ty Hurst from Poway has had a really great season, 13 touchdown passes so far. His numbers are looking pretty good. That's definitely someone that Torrey Pines, we know how they play on defense. They're going to try and stop him, tire him out, and put Poway in a really uncomfortable position because that's what they like to do to teams. It's going to be a close one, a good toss-up for the North County game as well.
Yeah, I think so too. And, you know, I think there's another good little avocado league game that might not necessarily decide who's going to win the avocado, but still, these teams always play really closely. It should be a really good action. Now we get on to the city game of the week. 6-2 Christian at 6-2 San Diego. Two teams that have by far been under the radar. For
sure.
everyone. They've been great across the board. Jaden Johnson of San Diego is averaging 85 rushing yards per game. Freshman quarterback Jaden Harris has been phenomenal across the board. Caleb Runkle, since he's taken over at quarterback at Christian, has been lights out. I mean, he's been great. These are two offenses that people really sleep on. And this is going to be a great game for Brandon Stone to go cover. You know, I cannot wait to watch this one. I don't know who to give the edge to. I'm leaning Christian because I've seen them live, and I've seen how well they run the ball and how big they are on the offensive line. So I'll probably give the edge to Christian in that regard, though I know how good San Diego has been this year. I'll lean towards Christian, but wouldn't surprise me at all if the Cavers get this done.
Yeah, I think the Cavers are definitely going to make Christian work pretty hard. I mean, these two teams are both sitting at the top of the City League right now. It's perfect for the City Game of the Week matchup. Christian's coming off a big 41-0 win. It's always fun to win like that on homecoming for them. So I know they're still fired up about that. But like you said, you've got all the Jadens at San Diego. Jonah Holloway, he's looking pretty good. And for Jaden Harris to be a freshman quarterback putting up those numbers and that kind of performance is really impressive. But at Christian, they have their sophomore quarterback, Caleb Runkle, who's settled in really well there, and their offense has been looking so much stronger since he's taken over. It's going to be a really, really good game between the two.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we might as well get on to our top nines. You know, we were anticipating a lot of movement, a lot of shifting around with how many games. I'm going to lie, I didn't have that much movement.
Nope.
And maybe that's a testament to how well we've done with our top nines, but it's also kind of sad because I wanted to mix up. And when I looked at it, I'm like, you know what? I still feel comfortable with mine. I'll start with mine. I have number 1 Lincoln at 6-2. I have number 2 Cathedral, even after the loss against Lincoln. Because they put on such a great performance against Granite Hills, they're still number 2 for me. For me, I still have Granite Hills number 3. Okay. I still have them there, even though LCC got a great win over Mission Hills. But I'm looking back on it, so did Granite Hills. Yeah. And they showed that they can run the ball effectively. I really want to see a Granite Hills LCC matchup.
Me too.
Because I really want to see how those two teams play out and how well those offenses can go against each other. I think it'd be a really great game. But for now, I have Granite Hills at 3. I still feel great about their defense. I still feel great about Max Turner and what they can do running the ball. I have them there, LCC number 4. I don't know what they can do to go higher than that because maybe it takes one of the other teams having to fall. Maybe it takes just an outstanding performance. Like if they go out there and put on a great one against Carlsbad, I probably will move them up. But I'm even though they're at 4, I feel very confident about LCC being a great team in this county who can contend for an open division spot. I don't know if they can go up against a Lincoln or a Cathedral. I don't. Maybe Cathedral might be a better matchup for them, but we also thought that with Granite. And, it's tough to still really tell with the rest of the pack. So I got them at 4. Mission Hills, even with their loss, I got them at 5. At 6-2. And at 6, I still have San Marcos. They got beat by Mission Hills. So I have them still right there slotted next to each other. At 7, even though they lost, I moved them up. Mount Miguel. I thought that they put on a good enough a performance against Granite Hills. Giving up 271 rushing yards is not really a great performance. But I still feel confident that they can play with the teams in that grouping because it's a lot of a passing attack. I think that really helps them. They need to adjust when coming down to like losing the lead early. I think if they lose the lead early, it's going to be tough for them just because teams can run the ball against them. But I do think Mount Miguel put on a good enough performance where I'm going to move them up. I think they have a really good offense. They've shown it with their wide receivers. Stowers looks better and better each week at quarterback. I think Mount Miguel is a team that could shock people and make another run towards the section title. Then I have Carlsbad dropping down to 8. No disappointment in them at all. It's a close game against Torrey Pines. We know how Torrey does that to everyone. Torrey did that to San Marcos. Played a close game. So, it's nothing disappointing in that regard against them for them dropping. I just liked what I saw from Mount Miguel. And then from number 9, I have Scripps Ranch getting in there, taking University City spot. Outside looking in is Rancho Bernardo. I think they're great. I think we really need to start talking about what Gage Weddle has been doing at quarterback. He's been phenomenal. And then on the defensive side of the ball as well, I think I'm going to lead towards Scripps Ranch because they don't have the loss. And I think that what they can do running the ball is kind of like one of those things with Mission Hills where they can be effective against anybody with that strategy. And I think that really gives them the edge. So that's my top 9.
Yeah, mine's pretty similar. I didn't change too much from the last couple weeks. Lincoln, of course, number 1. I have Cathedral at 2. I actually have been having LCC at 3, and I feel even better about that now that they're 8-0, so I'm not mad about where they are. Granite stays at 4. Mission Hills stays at 5. I have Carlsbad staying at 6. I think that they're a really strong team, and even though they did lose to Mission Hills a few weeks ago, I'm still keeping them only 1 spot below them. I have San Marcos at 7. San Marcos and Carlsbad are really close in my book right now, so it's kind of tough, but I just left them where they were at to avoid, I don't know, too much confusion, I guess. And then at 8, I have Mount Miguel. Like you said, they did lose to Granite, but not a bad team to lose to.
Yeah,
and they still put up a good amount of points. They still have so much talent over there. I think they're a really strong team. Like you said, great Division I contenders. And then at 9, I also have Scripps Ranch at 8-0. In the past, I was going back and forth between UC and Scripps Ranch, but Scripps Ranch took the win against them. And like you said, also keeping Rancho Bernardo in mind.
Yeah, and I think those are the two. If we had to like draw up games that we'd want to see, I think it would be Carlsbad San Marcos, and I think it would be LCC versus Granite. As far as like, and maybe it's because we've seen everybody else already play each other, so it probably plays a big part of that. But I do think the matchups there would be great.
Really,
I do think that like San Marcos and the way they throw the ball, the way they've played defensively as well, I think that's a great matchup where I think they get the edge over Carlsbad, but Carlsbad's also been good enough where they can hang with them. And obviously an LCC Granite game I think would be phenomenal across the board. But yeah, some good games coming up this week. That'll do for us. And as always, we'll see you guys on Friday night.
See you Friday.